Hello, it's Ryan from 2minutetennis.net, and in this video, I'm going to show you forehand grips, the Eastern forehand, the semi-Western forehand, and the full Western grip. I'm going to show you how to find them. First, let's talk about your hand. There are two spots on your hand, and this is for a right-hander. I'm going to show you a lefty in a second here, but we've got two spots, the base knuckle of our index finger and our heel pad. These two spots need to go on one of three panels on the grip, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But first, let's talk about the panels. There are 8 of them, right? So we're looking at an octagon here on our racket. And when we count, we always start at the top, which is right here. So that's panel number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. It goes all the way around clockwise. So we're going to take the base knuckle of the index finger and the heel pad, and for an Eastern forehand grip, we're going to use panel number 3. This is the Eastern forehand grip, the same grip that Roger Federer uses. When you are using an Eastern forehand grip, you got your strings are like this, and the racket is facing that way. Well, when you put your palm, the index finger and the heel pad, on panel number 3, your palm faces the same direction. Your palm faces the exact same direction as your strings. So it's a nice understanding of kind of like palm guidance. Wherever your palm is facing at contact is where the strings are facing. So it's very easy kind of to feel where the strings are pointing. That is an Eastern forehand grip. That's good for hitting flatter forehands. You can typically hit usually a little less spin with this type of forehand. Not always, like Roger Federer can rip the ball with topspin. But typically it creates a flatter forehand. It's easier to get depth. Keeps the ball in the air longer, so it's easier to hit the ball, penetrating through the court. Semi-Western. The semi-Western panel is panel number 4 right here. So what do? We take the base knuckle of the index finger and the heel pad, and we put them on panel number 4. So since the racket, again, this is the racket, the strings meaning, and these are where the strings are facing. When you put your palm on panel 4, your palm will be facing up at 45 degrees when your racket is contacting the ball. So your palm is no longer facing towards your target at contact. Your palm is facing up at 45 degrees. This is personally the grip that I use. You look at Novak Djokovic, you look at Serena Williams, this is their grip. They're using a semi-Western grip. This is good for putting a little more topspin on the ball because it helps you to close the racket face prior to contact. I mean, each panel, by the way, is 45 degrees different than the next panel, right? So there's a 45 degree difference on average between each panel. I mean, it's 360 divided by 8. So when you are holding the racket on panel number 4, which is this panel here, the 45 degree angle, bottom right panel as a right-hander, that helps actually to close the racket face about 45 degrees more, than an Eastern, and it should be much easier then to brush up the back of the ball for spin. Now, let's say you wanted like maximum topspin, right? It's a little hard to penetrate with the court, the more, spin that you get, but let's say you want to try kind of the jack sock full Western. Well, you're going to take the base knuckle and the heel pad, and you're going to put it all the way down on the bottom here, panel number 5. We've got the strings facing, let me redraw that, our strings facing toward our target, and the palm is then facing up. Your palm is facing up when your strings are facing forward on a full Western. Typically, this puts the contact point much farther out in front, a little closer to the body as well, and then it's very easy to brush right up the back of the ball. Typically, when players try the full Western grip at first, they get almost too much spin, and they can't really penetrate and hit hard balls. They typically complain that all of a sudden their power is gone, but they spin the ball a lot. So the more Eastern your grip, typically the flatter and the harder you can hit the ball. Think Del Potro, but you won't get a lot of spin typically unless you really practice it. And then the more Western is the opposite. The more spin you'll get. It's actually why I prefer for myself to use a semi-Western. So this is an Eastern, this is a semi-Western, this is a full Western. Now, for you lefties, it's the same thing, just completely reversed. So we've got our 8 panels, and, right, it's no different. It's still 8 panels, but we count the other way. So we count counterclockwise. So the top panel is number 1, same as the righties, but this is 2, 3, 4, and then the very bottom is number 5. So we want the 3 panels for the Eastern, semi-Western, and full Western. So we take the base knuckle of our index finger, the heel pad, and for an Eastern forehand, the Roger Federer grip, that is your Eastern forehand grip. That whole panel rides up the entire length of the grip. So you put these 2 spots of the hand on panel number 3, and that, again, with the strings facing this way at contact, that points your palm the same direction. You've got the semi-Western panel. That puts your palm facing up at 45 degrees. Remember, we always want to keep track of those 2 spots on the hand. And then last is the full Western, the very bottom. The full Western grip is the same for a righty and a lefty because it's the very bottom panel. And that points your palm up when your strings are facing forward. So work on the grips. Try them. Try an Eastern. Try a semi-Western. Try a full Western. What changes at contact isn't really the racket face, but what changes is where your palm is facing when you strike the ball. Go out and practice those 3 forehand grips. Choose one, and there's no doubt you're going to gain confidence, win more matches, and play much better tennis. This is Ryan Reedy from 2MinuteTennis.net. You got this.